Now into the Williams Weekly, and I thought it'd be a real interesting talking point following Hulka's win over Warrington, where Mikey Lewis basically put George Williams in his pocket. Right? Okay, he didn't exactly dominate him, but he definitely ran the show for that game.
Yeah, he did.
And that makes me wonder, like, between George Williams, Harry Smith, and Mikey Lewis, like, who are the first choice England halfbacks right now? You know, what would that partnership be?
Yeah, and I mean, there are other players who are probably putting their hands up, but you've got to say it's going to be those three for England this year. I can't see anyone else breaking into that at the minute, can you? I was very much of the opinion of last year. I think Mikey Lewis is he's exciting, he's pushing in, but I was of the opinion he was the player that you could bring on the field to mix it up and change the direction a little bit. I'm leaning more now to him being one of the first choice players in the lineup. I don't know what are your thoughts. Who are your two halfbacks? If you're Sean Wayne,
well, there's two things here. So I mean, Sean Wayne has obviously got an allegiance to George Williams and is the international captain. So
and Harry Smith because he's a Wiganer.
This is my point. This is my point I was going to say. So I think George Williams, like, he's just tied down. Like, I don't think he's moving. Therefore, it boils down to Mikey Lewis versus Harry Smith, and Harry Smith's got this Wigan link.
Yeah.
He also performed extremely well against Tonga back end of last year, and did a couple of things that were really exciting. And you know, one thing that you get from Harry Smith is almost like a metronome, just like ding, 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 just goes through the aspects of the game that he needs to do to control the ball, you know, and ultimately win games. And he's performing, you know what I mean, at the highest in this country right now. It's definitely an interesting conversation.
I would go as far as saying he is probably the top Super League player at the minute.
Who, Harry Smith?
No,
Mikey Lewis.
Mikey Lewis. I would say Mikey Lewis is probably the top performing halfback, and if you're the best player in the league and you can't push your way into the England squad because of reputation, I think there's something wrong there.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go all out. I'm going all out here. I'm going to say I think Mikey Lewis should be the starting halfback for England this year.
Yeah, I think,
at this moment in time, how he's playing.
Yeah, I think the partnership should be George Williams, Mikey Lewis. You know,
right, okay.
The problem with this is, like you've already made an interesting point, and that interesting point is like Mikey Lewis can change a game. He brings a different dynamic. However, to go the other way might not necessarily work unless Mikey Lewis is just getting targeted, which Tonga started to do. You know, they didn't quite tie him down in the series last year, but they got wise to him. You know what I mean? They started targeting him and shutting him down. Okay, to then be able to bring on Harry Smith, who runs the game in a different way. Yeah, it could work. So maybe that's the format.
So we're agreeing then. We're going George Williams and Mikey Lewis. Well, we're going to get loads of shit for this, you know.
Well, this is brilliant. Yeah, but that's exactly. It's not shit. I just want people's opinion. I want to know what their thoughts are and why. You know, justify it to us, because is there something we missed, something we don't know? Because
I'll play devil's advocate for a second here. George Williams and Mikey Lewis, more attacking halfbacks. So you're putting two more attacking halfbacks on. Then if you're putting Harry Smith on the bench, what are you going to get if you bring him on?
Right, I think young George Williams and Mikey Lewis would not have worked. Too similar.
Right.
I think George Williams has changed now. Like, he is running plays. He's demanding that team. I mean, you know, you watch him at the weekend and the way he's snapping and he's constantly scheming. You know what I mean? To run the team, very different.
Yeah.
I remember a time when. You know, when he went to Canberra and they were like, we just want to get him to open his mouth up a bit, you know what I mean, and just start controlling. So I don't think that would have worked too much. But now I think, one, George Williams is mature enough. Two, Mikey Lewis knows his place on the pitch, you know, and so I think as a dynamic it could work.
The good news is...
we don't need to make the decision.
Well, yeah, and we haven't been in this position as an international side where we're actually... debating which halfback we're going to use, which halfback pairing we're going to use, because we know as England, look, we are obsessed with beating Australia. Let's put it on the table, and I hope that when these Ashes come round, we do them. We've always been able to compete with the top international nations, Australia, in the forwards. We've always had a rough and ready pack, and in fact, we've actually scared a lot of international sides with our forward pack. But we've never been as good in the backs, and we've never had the halfbacks that have been able to compete at the highest level with like players that you've seen playing State of Origin. I do feel now that the fact that we're debating which halfback we're going to use tells us that we've got 3 really strong halfbacks there. So Australia,
watch this space.
Watch this space.
But I think here's another interesting thing to carry on is like we've always had a lot of choice with hookers, right?
Yeah.
But who's your first choice hooker now? Because like Danny Walker is doing really, really well. Until recently, Darryl Clark wasn't setting the league alight.
No,
he did. He had a great game recently, but bit quiet there. So
he has. I think you need that like experience at hooker.
Yeah.
And I think at the minute I'd still go with Darryl Clark.
All right. Interesting.